Welcome to another episode of the Sports Sentiment. I am your host, Nick Urias, and we are back once again talking college basketball. We are 48 hours removed from San Jose State and UNLV, and we are 48 hours ahead of San Jose State and GCU happening this Saturday, 2 p.m. at the Provident Credit Union Event Center. Look, SJSU 1-12 now in Mountain West play after a 7-point loss at UNLV, 82-75 loss in the Thomas and Mack Center. Tough one for San Jose State. They were in it. Their offense really performed well in this one, dropped 41 points in the first half, yet they were still trailing. That defense continues to struggle without Yafet Mundi, but overall some really good performances from Kobe Garland, a career-high 21 points for Pasha Godarzi, for a guy that was, not playing any minutes as a freshman, has grown as a sophomore, was supposed to be really a spark plug in his junior year here in his third year here in San Jose, has really emerged as this number 2, number 3 scorer in a game that they didn't have Jermaine Washington in. We're going to get into our just kind of thoughts and takeaways from the UNLV game on Tuesday night. And then we're going to preview San Jose State and Grand Canyon. We're going to have a guest on for the pod here today as we're recording this on the Thursday afternoon. We're going to have Brennan Willams from Go Lopes Radio, covers Grand Canyon basketball, does a terrific job. Everything that he's doing out there in Phoenix, Arizona, covering Grand Canyon in its first year in the Mountain West. If you haven't already, go give him a follow because he's doing podcasts, analysis, breakdowns, you name it. He's doing it for GCU Hoops, and they're really good, and they're a future Mountain West member. So we'll introduce him when he gets in here. But first and foremost, before we dive into San Jose State and UNLV and just kind of my thoughts and takeaways from it, we actually got a soundbite from San Jose State head coach Tim Miles. So we're going to go ahead and play that. Was at his little media scrum today. Got to ask him just, I guess, his thoughts on the UNLV loss. So we're going to play that 4-minute video right now. And then when we're done with that, we'll come back and kind of release our thoughts on Tuesday night's loss in Las Vegas.
With those games, we're right there within a possession, chances to get over the top, and it goes back to that New Mexico game where we had some opportunities and we didn't capitalize them when we could have, and the other team made us pay. Same thing with these games, and when you're shorthanded the way we are, you've got to capitalize on those opportunities.
Yeah. And just looking ahead to Grand Canyon on Saturday, just what stands out to you about them on film?
Well, they have great talent, right? They have athleticism, size inside, and those two guards, Williams and Henley, are fast in transition. They get fouled, they're downhill, they're really a handful. And for right now, we're playing 3 guards. So we're going to have to stay out of foul trouble and do a good job getting back, getting ready, and getting organized against those guys.
Yeah, and but mentioned guys like Douglas Langford been out of the rotation recently. Are there maybe plans to kind of like regenerate him just into
he'll have to earn it in practice. If he earns it in practice, he'll get that chance.
And then, Coach, you scored 41 in the first half versus UNLV. I know your man-to-man wasn't working. You went to a zone in the second half. I mean, just what are those like adjustments, on the fly in games like that when your offense is producing? It's just defensively, the Rebels are kind of taking it to you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the Rebs have a lot of talent too, right?
Yep.
And I just felt like going zone, the way they were driving it down on us. They were getting in the paint. They were getting us in the paint. And I was just hoping that we haven't run a lot of 1-3-1, but it was good for us. I thought it got some stops. We got some turnovers out of it. It's hard to rebound out of it, but at the same time, it gave us a chance, right? And we just had a couple empty possessions that got away from us where they turned bad offense into good offense for them. And anytime you let a team run offense off your offense, you're in trouble. But then we got down 13 and got it all the way back to I think 2 or 3 again, and again just couple empty possessions here, a couple lost opportunities, and there you go.
And we're in February right now, and I know you guys are a little bit banged up, and you got this inexperienced front court just trying to learn on the fly. Just how difficult is it when you got a guy like Jaffet that provides really good minutes early on, but then he fouls out, and then you're just kind of like rotating everybody back and forth.
And then Adrian gets hurt, has to go out 2 possessions, right. and so we have to come back in. But, that's part of coaching. That's And what you try to do is make sure that everybody's ready in practice, right? So that when they get their opportunity to shine in a game, that they do shine. And I think that's the art of it, right? And so that's why this, 2.5 hours of film today and practice really matter.
And then, just with Green Canyon, you talked about their guards, they're terrific downhill drivers. You get outscored by 26, I believe, in the paint it was on earlier this week versus the Rebs. I mean, just how do you channel that out and, I guess stop the downforce of those guys?
Without Fetty, that hurt our physicality, right? And so now you've got Sada at the center a whole bunch and Adrian at the 4, and those guys are more natural power forwards than small forwards. So we know we're going to give some things up in the paint, right? But we got to make them pay on the other end then, which we did with some 3-point shooting. And so, hopefully because we're at home, we'll continue to shoot it well the entire game instead of just the first half.
And then one more for me, just the growth of Pasha Gadarzi. We talked before conference play, like, hey, he's going to be a spark plug for us, but now he's kind of emerging as like number 2, number 3. Just what have you liked from him and what have you seen from, I guess, between him and Garland in the backcourt together?
Yeah, they're a good tandem in the backcourt. They're playing well off each other, and that's always really important. The one thing about Pasha that is he continues to grow and develop, right? Didn't get a whole bunch of attention out of high school. People are like, what do you think? But I knew he had an elite skill. I knew that if he had his feet set, he could make a shot at any level. And that's one thing he continues to prove. Now, he has 2 or 3 assists, driving it, pitching it out. He goes in and gets rebound. Now you got shot 8 foul shots. So that growth, I think that incremental growth in other areas of the game has been really impressive.
There you have it, San Jose State head coach Tim Miles. Appreciate always when we get to talk to Coach Miles, always gives good insights on the game. Just very quickly, just revisiting San Jose State's Tuesday night loss at UNLV. I mean, look, UNLV's been the erratic bunch in the Mountain West. We've talked about it a ton on this very podcast. I mean, they've won at Utah State by 10. They had the disastrous loss when they were up 8 with 30 seconds left at Fresno and managed to lose the game. They've just been a wild team all over the place. But when they put it together, they're a really good team, right? And you could just see that athletically, they're really good. They're really good. And Tyron Jones was a questionable heading into this game. He was available, didn't play the first 10 minutes of this game. That was kind of my thought, like, hey, if Howie Fleming and Tyron Jones don't play in this game, San Jose State's got a solid chance to win this game. And that's exactly what we said on Tuesday afternoon when we did our live show. Like, hey, those are 2 really dynamic players. Fleming only played, a minute in this game. And, Tyron Jones, once when this game kind of got a little dicey, midway through the first half, Josh Pastner's like, okay, let's just roll him out here, see what he got. And, when you're missing Yafet Moody for San Jose State, Tyron Jones would be able to eat. And, 13 points in 24 minutes. I mean, that is a high upside forward. That's only a freshman for UNLV. But for SJSU, like most games on the road for them this year, and even going and feel like in years past, they just start out slow on the road. They started out 1 for 10 from the field in this game. First 5 minutes within that span was kind of ugly. Rebels started on the other side on a 9-0 run. But credit to SJSU in that regard, because I feel like in years past, this team would just kind of drop it, right? If they get punched in the mouth 9-0 early against a team that's more athletic and better than them, there's really not too much resistance for them. I go back and look at games like versus Boise and Utah State years ago. Previous Spartan teams that were kind of in this exact spot really didn't have that punch back. And that's the beauty of a guy like Kobe Garland. He could kind of, when he gets activated into the game, he could kind of open everything else up for you. Adrian Myers had a season high and probably a career high 8 assists. I mean, he had like 5 of those in the first half, just kind of making the right plays. Japhet Mopadelli is going to have probably one of the more bizarre, I guess, stat lines you'll have all year. Played 14 minutes, dropped 11 points, and fouled out in the game. He had 3 fouls in the first half, and he came out firing. He was hitting all the threes early for this team, and he kind of really got the outside shot for SJSU going in this game, because we talked about the path to victory for San Jose State in this underdog role that they currently have with their roster right now. And that is, especially on the road, they got to come out firing from 3. Otherwise, it's going to be a long day for him. We mentioned to Miles about, just the fact that he dropped 41 first half points, and UNLV was killing their man. They couldn't stay in front of Gibbs Lawhorn. Kimani Hamilton was hitting all these threes early, and Hamilton's one of these guys where if he's hitting the three early, you're going to be in a heap of trouble because he is a freakish athletic player that could, he hits the three, switches up your defense a ton, and then he's going to go slam it down. And look, he had a double in this game. He's probably the most impactful player in this game from that regard. And he still shot 9 free throws, and he's not really that good of a free throw shooter. He went 8 for 9. But we talked about Pasha Gadarzi for SJSU, just the growth within his game. And, it's really had to come, I guess here on the fly here with Jermaine Washington out. It's helped that they've had tons of guard injuries, that he's kind of taken advantage of it, because this was a guy that was a spot-up shooter 2 months ago. And now all of a sudden, it's like, hey, you got to go take it to the rack. Otherwise, our offense is going to be extremely stagnant. And a lot of times, the ball would just stick in the second half with this team. And it's like, okay, Garland's going to have to make something happen. And Garland was hitting some ridiculous shots in this game. I don't even know how they were falling. I mean, he had a kiss off the rim. He had that, acceleration to the rim or acceleration to the nail, and then he'd stop and float it in. Like, Garland's a gifted player, and we've known that. We've been covering him all year long. But, man, on a national spotlight game, you certainly saw that. We said we wanted a little bit more from Melvin Bell. He's got to work on the free throw shooting. 3 for 6. We know he's uber athletic, but if, he wants to draw free throws and he wants to, showcase his physicality, he's got to make people pay at the free throw line. He came up empty in the first half on 2 missed free throws, and, that's an empty possession practically. So as far as the big minutes right now, it's all over the place. And you heard the first question from our fellow media member, Hattie, who does a good job covering SJSU with the Spear. Said, hey, Douglas Langford didn't play. What's the minutes looking like there? Well, he's got to practice better. So, expect a whole lot more Nganga at the 5. Mopadelli, we'll see. I mean, fouling out in 14 minutes is certainly not great. And a team like Grand Canyon, and again, we'll get into GCU here in a moment, with our guest Brennan Willams, but, we'll see what those minutes look like. It's going to be a hefty amount of Nganga. He'll most certainly be starting. But, for as far as minutes, otherwise beyond that, I would expect a little bit more of Marcus Overstreet in a game like this one, just because I feel like he can hang versus GCU's bigs versus, Tyron Jones for UNLV, who could take it coast to coast. You can't really get into that up and down track meet type style with a guy like Overstreet on the floor. So, we'll see what happens there as far as the bigs minutes is concerned. But as we all know right now, SJSU has to play perfect in a lot of these games on the road. And, you see an encouraging performance last time they're at home versus New Mexico. Things get a little bit better for them. Can they just get stops on the defensive end? GCU is really athletic with their guards, and they can get downhill. So you might have the same issue there. But again, just very intrigued to see how all that pans out, this Saturday versus Grand Canyon out here in San Jose. All right, diving into this Saturday, San Jose State and Grand Canyon, 2 p.m. on an absolutely stacked college basketball slate just around the country. But we got this one all locked up, and we're going to dissect it all the way down from top to bottom. And we're going to bring on our guest for this week. Does a terrific job covering GCU, Go Lopes Radio. He's writing previews. He's talking the games, win or loss. He's been covering GCU for quite a while, and its first year in the Mountain West. They are right in the thick of things here. Top 5 in the standings, making some real noise, and, got themselves one of the best home courts, not only in the league, but I can argue in the country, just for how rambunctious the Havocs are. So let's bring him on in. Brennan Willams, representing GCU and Go Lopes Radio. Brennan, thanks for coming on, my man. Great talking with you beforehand. And, man, SJSU and GCU this Saturday should be hopefully a good one.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me, Nick. Appreciate you and love all the stuff you're doing up there. Wearing multiple hats for the Spartans up there. So we love it. But yeah, excited to be here. I mean, we're kind of at a weird point in the season where it kind of feels like the dog days. But maybe that's just because I was recording a very somber rapid reaction at like 12:30 when I got home after the game last night. So maybe that's why it feels like the dog days. And maybe it's because GCU's on a 2-game winning streak or losing streak. But yeah, man, we were talking a little bit before, like this is what GCU wanted to sign up for. Like they wanted that game they had last night at home. Obviously it doesn't go their way, but now you got to go out on the road. You got a tough 2-game road trip, San Jose State showing signs, I think, and part of that's just getting guys back. So I think Saturday should be an entertaining one. I think if you're obviously a GCU fan in GCU, you're hoping, you've heard the stories, about the various teams in the Mountain West, the Fresnos and the Wyomings, and you go into those buildings and you kind of don't know what you're getting. And San Jose State's one of those. So we just had it at UNLV. So let's hope they kind of get out on the road and maybe switches some vibes up and they can bounce back. But looking forward to Saturday.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, when you lose 2 in a row in this league and, for a GCU team, that's got to get back kind of in the spot New Mexico was when, they came into Phoenix, right? They lost 2 in a row at home, kind of uncharacteristic. Yep. Can't drop the third one, and especially at this time of year. So, yeah, should be very interesting. I'm just curious, from making the transition from the Mountain West out in the WAC, you had some, sleepy environments, I would say, right? Like that Utah trip is always rough, right? Like the going to Utah Valley and St. George, and there's like 15 people there. So it's one of those things like for GCU, like as much as I'd like to say, hey, it's a flat spot and all this stuff, Bryce Drew, he's been the guy that's been around, not so much, I would say, this roster. I mean, maybe because of just how, I guess how the WAC was for all of those years, maybe he'll have his guys ready, but I'm kind of just interested from your perspective, watching these games in the WAC for so long and then now going to the Mountain West, like you can't take a night off in this league.
No, it's brutal. I mean, I told you I went back and rewatched last night's game, and I think it was kind of the perfect encapsulation. You talk about New Mexico coming in struggling, obviously GCU coming off the loss at UNLV. That was a little bit puzzling, but you watch the last 6 minutes and 11 seconds, and it was I don't kind of want to say an Olin masterclass because I don't think they obviously weren't playing great. GCU kind of had them on the ropes after being down 20, and they had the lead. So I wouldn't say I bet Lobo fans wouldn't say it was a masterclass, but you watch how his team handled their business down the last 6 minutes. And that was like, oh yeah, this is Mountain West. Like these are really good college basketball coaches. This is Jake Hall, even as a true freshman, obviously overlooked. He's comfortable with the ball in his hand, even with a guy like Nana Wusu Anane on him in a possession. They get an offensive rebound after he misses. He goes right back to the same spot, gets a pretty similar shot and hits it. Like there's a ton of talent. There's a ton of infrastructure at these places, a ton of investment, really good coaching. And it kind of felt like last night was the encapsulation of it. And I also told you, like, that's what GCU wants. Like they want to be in those moments. They got there, obviously didn't get the win last night, but yeah, I mean, obviously it might be a little sleepier heading up to San Jose, but there's so many things to keep in mind with some of those WAC road trips is it's not just like not a lot of fans there, but these were tiny towns. Like these were brutal travels they had to go to. Some of the little towns in Texas and, we talked about some of those Southern Utah, like it's tough trips. And, San Jose State, all things considered, that's a pretty easy trip, bigger city. You kind of feel like you're still in like a civilization, not in this like weird bubble. So, it won't be, I don't think that crazy of a road trip. And I'll tell you this, if you were to tell me something wild happens in this game, I probably would have guessed it's got that 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. start. So the fact that we're getting the 3 p.m., listen, I'm a little worried, but the 3 p.m. to me is better than when it gets really late and stuff gets really weird. So we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to it. And just, I think, I left that San Jose State game when they came down here. It's just a bummer, like just didn't feel right. You're not, I guess, I mean, I could just say this as like an intent. It just didn't feel right. Like them having so many guys out, I hate to say they were like running out of the tunnel and you're like, wait, where are the other guys at? It's like, oh no, that's just them today. That's all they got. So I think I'm happy that, and I thought they played hard, but I'm happy Miles has got, a little bit more in the arsenal this time around. And, the best basketball team will win Saturday.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was probably the most SJSU was banged up in that game, I would say, because Ben Roseborough, who's injured right now, he's on the shelf. He had 23 points in that game, and Melvin Bell had 17. That was a 76-58 win for GCU. I think the students were back in for that one. The place was nuts. Kind of a cruise control victory, I would say, for GCU. SJSU never really threatened. Maybe they cut it within 3 possessions in the first half.
They didn't roll over, though. So I want to give them credit, SJSU, especially down guys. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, and I would just say that, like, just for everybody out here in San Jose, maybe there's maybe 2 spots this year, probably like the Nevada ones probably sticks out the most when you got drilled by 30, and maybe like the Tulsa game in the non-conference where it's like, okay, like it's over, and I don't want to say you're giving up on the game, but you're kind of you're going to wave the white flag and move on. For a lot of these games, when SJSU's been down 3-4 starters, they've come and, met their opponent. And, a lot of those guys, are underclassmen and inexperienced and really getting the taste of the Mountain West physicality. So, this game is, in San Jose, circumstance will be different, especially when Garland's back, who's still top 3 in the Mountain West at scoring. Jaden Henley was a guy that has obviously flashed for GCU, leading the team in points per game. He was at media days, got to talk to him. And, I've talked about him on just, when I've talked about, just GCU games from my perspective, when I watch them, like him being at UNLV last year, and their star point guard, Deaton Thomas, went out with an injury, and he was forced to have, the ball in his hands a whole lot more. Yeah, exactly. He had the car keys and he had to go. And, I think that's helped him out. That was almost like an audition and kind of like, hey, this kind of why you're at GCU now. And I think that's helped him out a ton. That's a good thing, I feel like, for the Lopes, that, hey, Henley's played in this building before. He knows that it's a Saturday afternoon. People might have better things to do. And, he could kind of channel this group down, all the emotions or lack of emotions a little bit. If things get tight here. I'm just curious just on just the makeup of the roster here with those 3 guards, Makai Williams, Jaden Henley, and Brian Moore. What have you liked from those guys? Trying to mesh at the start of the year, but I mean, they look good now.
Yeah, it's been super touch and go. Like we've seen, recently I've been pretty critical, and recently being the last week on the guard play. But you could go back 2 or 3 weeks ago and you look at the Utah State game, you're like, that's the best. Oh my gosh, they just outplayed maybe the best backcourt in the conference in Utah State. And it's like, oh my, now you see, you talk about that Jaden Henley, his ability to pop, and Makai Williams and Brian Moore Jr. But the last 2 games, it's been a little bit of a struggle from the backcourt. Like they've shot really bad. They've taken bad shots. I had some comments in my rapid reaction. There were just moments where one of them specifically was really checked out to like start the game. And it was really weird to see, just getting like beat 4 or 5 times in the first, I think 10 to 12 minutes. So it's been a weird season. But you see their ability to pop and play really well. And I think that's kind of, I don't want to say why I'm harsh, but it's like these guys have a really high level gear and ability. I mean, Jaden Henley's massive. He's 6'7" with, long arms. He might as well play like he's 6'9", and he's really good. And when those guys, when it just fits, like it's really special. A big part of that's been Caleb Shaw has been out, the 3-and-D guy. And he, I just say he fits in, and he's this piece that makes everything else make sense. And it's, maybe the data gang isn't going to support that. It's kind of more of an eye test thing, but everything makes a ton more sense when Caleb Shaw's been on the lineup. And since it just feels like everything's a little bit off at times, but the guard play's got to improve. They've shown they're special. I thought last night, the big story was just there were 2 games, right? GCU goes down 20, And then they come back and they take the lead. And it's like, you literally saw two completely different teams. You saw what the guards can do when they get downhill. They're getting by guys and the size and how good they are at finishing around the rim when they're engaged. And then you see the first few minutes and then the last 5 minutes, and it's like passivity. They don't know what they're doing. Are you doing it or am I doing it? You want the ball? Or, we're 8 seconds left on the shot clock. Oh, nobody's going to get it in the paint. Okay, we'll just take this long too. So, it's been like touch and go. Jaden Henley, really, he's been special. He's not shooting the three well at all. That's one really big thing. And I think he's settled for a lot of jumpers. So when he's not settling, and that's easier to say if you had a bunch of shooters around you, but GCU hasn't shot the ball well. So it's been a unique season, I think, with those guards. And, I think Saturday is going to be the next chapter of that. And you got to be honest, like you look at the ebbs and flows of this stuff. If you want to look ahead to Tuesday, knock yourself out, if you're GCU, because, I'm watching, I did my pregame thing last game for Colby Garland. He got ruled out. I think it was the morning of. He was a late addition, and you're watching the tape there, and you're like, whoa, this guy. So look ahead to Tuesday all they want. If you don't want to focus in on this game Saturday, it could be an interesting one. So they've got a lot to prove, in my opinion. In every single game, they need to be proving it. They just don't have. They haven't earned the right to kind of, I guess, coast through and maybe take even like 10, 12-minute stretches off, because they just can't afford it. It's hurt them this season.
I would say that, based on what I saw versus UNLV, and they're going to look at that tape and they're going to just, I feel like their eyes are going to be wide open when they just kind of see like those guards are going to be able to get downhill. That's something I talked about with Miles, and, he said, hey,
yep.
Without like our big man right now, we're going to have to live with it. And like, there's really no secret to it. So Henley's really good at getting to the line. I feel Mekhi Williams, that guy can shoot the heck out of it, but like, man, he's really, pesky as far as like,
yep.
drawing fouls and, taking contact. The bigs, I feel like for just GCU as a whole are kind of like, have been undervalued, like just
absolutely
from top to bottom this year. Because I look at a guy like Effie Demerol, I feel like he won you the Boise State game. I look at a guy like Dennis Evans, who doesn't really have too much like offensive, skill sets, but defensively he's a menace. And, I feel like he won you the Utah State game.
Absolutely.
And then you look at a guy like Breidenbach, who, really did a good job of closing out the Fresno State game on the road. So I feel like those three guys in certain spots can all impact the game. Obviously, I've been a big Nana Owusu-Anane fan for anyone that's tuned into this podcast just over the course of the year. I mean, do you kind of echo what I said about, that big man trio? And I guess just what impact does Nana make? Because he's not really a stats guy. Sure, you could look at the rebounds, but man, he just does so much impact in the basketball game.
Yeah, you're spot on. And Nana's been special. That's just how he goes. And I'm just gonna sit here and probably say a ton of cliches about him. You could name it the hard hat, the little things, whatever's your go-to cliche. That's literally him. And he's it. Like even at UNLV, that was about as bad as that Lopes team played. And there was one single individual person that every single minute he was on the floor was 100% engaged. And there was even like 2 or 3 times in the UNLV game from last Saturday where you could see him just boiling these long rebounds that UNLV would get. And you could see him like, oh my gosh, he might just jump up and grab the ball off the rim himself. And there was 2 or 3 times where he just went and just bulleted towards the ball, grabbed it just to like, this possession's over. Like, stop with whatever you guys are doing. And that's just how he rolls. And he's a special player. He can guard everyone. I brought up the 2 possessions he had against Jake Hall. He was really awesome one-on-one. And I don't know if that was purposeful at the end of the game. It looked like it wasn't. I mean, they run a lot of kind of, handoffs and just a lot of motion going on in New Mexico. So I'm not sure if that was pointed, but it did seem like end of the game, maybe, hey, let's pull this out and see if maybe we put Nana on Jake Hall, if he's going to get the ball and see what he could do. He did awesome the first time. Forced a little bit of this kind of lean in thing that wasn't great. He was a little off balance and it was incredible. GCU obviously doesn't get the rebound. Nana's still on him, plays incredible defense, and Jake Call just made a 15-foot like step back. Like it's like, yeah, sure, man. So Nana's talented. He can guard 1 through 5. He's physical. The thing I always say with him is he's a tweener. He's 6'8", 6'9". He's never probably had a position his whole life in basketball. And a lot of times, when you look at like drafts, they and I'm not putting Nana in that category, but just to give people an idea, like, if you don't have position, teams get pretty weirded out. Like, you need to explain it. And even since like Draymond's kind of obviously up in the Bay Area, like there's been guys that have been successful at, but there's been a ton of guys that haven't been great. And so I think teams run away from that. And Nana's never had a position. I think it's what's made him so special, because he's had to figure out ways to impact games, because he's not 7 foot tall like F.A. Demerol. He's not this, 6'8" wing who can just dribble and get by guys, so he's had to kind of find his own way. And I think that's what makes him really special. Ton of impact, and FA is just kind of coming on as the big guy. So I think he's the guy. If you just draw a giant circle around, like, yeah, I know the guards have a ton to prove after what they did. The last 2 games, they've just not been good. I think you look at this game against San Jose State, you just really quick chalk it up and you're like, oh, that's the guy. Like Nana, this is you're missing the big. In general, you guys don't have a ton of size. Like, this is a FA. I'm honestly, in the first game, they were just doing simple duck-ins to him and just getting him the ball, and he was able to work. So I think some easy offense is needed for this team. I'd keep an eye on some of that. Like, can we just get FA the ball and just maybe try to get it earlier in the shot clock? If they double, pass it out. Let's not throw it to him with 6 seconds left and force him to do something. I would expect to see them feed him often, try to get as low as he can, and then kind of work the offense out from there. I think that makes a lot more sense than trying to just constantly put pressure on those guards who played a ton of minutes. Like, a bunch of them, played over 36, 37 minutes, those starters for GCU. I know San Jose State's been doing the same thing. Guys just going full 40s, which is sick, and I respect the heck out of it. So I guess we're going to see who might be more refreshed come Saturday as well. That'll probably be a storyline.
Obviously, for SJSU, they're going to need Garland, just to hit as many shots as possible. If he can play make, that's even better. I'm interested in Jermaine Washington didn't play on our road trip, who's kind of been our 2 guard all year, much more off the ball. He can create, but I would say that's not his strength right now as a sophomore. They'd much rather have Garland create and, have him have those rhythm threes. So if Washington's in, keep an eye on him, because he's one of these dudes where if he's like 3 for 3, it could turn into like 5 for 6 in one of these games. Adrian Myers, we've talked about him. He's kind of like with San Jose State, kind of just their offense. The bigs are going to handle the ball like a lot. Especially a guy like Sada Nganga. You're going to have like a lot of DHOs, dribble handoffs, kind of like, just kind of towards the 3-point line to get the guards downhill. And they just, sometimes they'll run pick and roll off of it or whatever. So just kind of interested to see how that pans out. But again, we're going to see if SJSU can stay in front of these guards, because, UNLV was able to drop 44, 45 in the first half. And, Miles had to go to zone. He had to hop into a 1-3-1, which is something they haven't really done too much this year. So,
I think that's a good point there is, the stuff that really caused GCU problems at the end of that game is, and Olin said this in his post-game presser. He said, an assistant coach came up to him with like 7 minutes left and said, what do you think about like a matchup zone in demand? Like, just to keep these guys from getting downhill and maybe make them beat us passing and see if that's something they want to do. Of course they do that. And that's when GCU's offense completely broke down for like a 6-7 minute stretch. GCU 333rd in the country at the moment at shooting the 3. I would not be shocked to even see Miles open up with that zone as well. And then one thing, I know you're rolling here, but I want to just support your points here. I'm going to list everybody that was out from that first game. Just to reemphasize the point you were saying: Colby Garland, Coley, Jermaine Washington, Jaden Goodall, Christian Wise, Mundi the big, and Javon Hanna, who was questionable, ended up being ruled out. Those were all out in the first game as well, just so your listeners, if they don't remember that. I know you're listing off some of the guys who are due for some get back, but that'll be fascinating to see if that zone comes into play.
Yeah. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if they opened up with it. Now that we're kind of talking about it here, just given the first half struggles last game. Adrian Myers, I've been kind of saying this for a while. He's a guy that could kind of pop up for you, and very volatile player, right?
Well, I mean, he missed them all last game, so that might be bad news for the Lopes. So he got all his misses out, maybe.
Well, he's had tons of, like, he's one of these guys where, there was a non-conference game and he had a career high, and Coach Miles was about to pull him out, and he had like 6 points, like in 40 seconds. And then, and then there's other spots where, last game he takes like 5 of them in the first 16 minutes of the game and he misses all of them. So he's not afraid to pull the trigger. I think GCU fans kind of with Garland back are going to kind of, see that, a whole lot more. It's just a matter of, can they go down, of course. So that could kind of be like a wild card. And I've kind of been saying that for a while now, and it hasn't really done too much, but yeah, should be an interesting game just to see how GCU handles it, given what they have, on deck following this San Jose game at San Diego State. San Diego State, of course, lost at GCU Arena, in a very interesting fashion down the stretch. Yep. Miles Bird being called for the foul in the final second. So, obviously that's going to be an intriguing game, but you got to handle this one first, of course. Brennan, before we get you out of here, just kind of what are you looking here for the Lopes down the stretch? What do you got? 5, 6, or you got like 7 games left before the end of the regular season here. Obviously all eyes are on the Mountain West tournament because, I feel like this team is capable when they get hot of really making a run here in this tournament. I imagine you're going to have the fans there. The student sections are going to, the student section will be in the lower level this year. From what I saw.
Fantastic. Yeah. Good job to the Mountain West.
100%. So kudos to the league for that. San Diego State, New Mexico, Utah State, and I feel like GCU are going to pack that crowd out in Vegas, and the crowd environment, as you know, out there in GCU Arena, but in that environment on a neutral floor, that stuff matters.
That'll be fun. Yeah.
What do you just make of here? What are you looking for GCU, not only for this game, but just going forward here as we approach March?
Well, so the presser yesterday was not good. Bryce Drew said it multiple times. We're going to be something along the lines. We're going to be having to have meetings tomorrow with guys. We're going to be, and I don't know the other verbiage he used, essentially saying things are not going great individually. So again, that's not me kind of making stuff up or seeing things. It's like he literally said, we're going to have some meetings with guys to talk about things. So that is a massive red flag. That's like, whoa. So to me, it really is like a gut check time for this team, because the reality is the bubble stuff's gone. Like it's over. It was over after UNLV, in my opinion, by like a mile, even if they really went on that Colorado State run. So it's kind of this mix of pride and momentum and just trying to, get an idea of what this team is, because I talked to early season about this group. Like, they're going to have to develop and it takes time. Well, we're mid-February now. So I don't really, if you don't have this thing churning, like, I don't know what to tell you. So I think it's just, you're going to get a good idea on these guys individually. And then I think this, like, as a collective group, because the big thing is, like you said, they've shown a ton of flashes, outplaying Utah State, playing toe-to-toe with San Diego State. Now they were down Guelph, but, that's kind of life in the Mountain West. So a lot of pride and a lot of focus, I think, is another good word. And, are they willing to continue to play within, as a unit and not really let this detach them? Because the last 2 games are about as ugly as it gets. Like, I don't know. I've kind of running out of adjectives to talk about here. Not to, I'm not disparaging or being disrespectful, but they're just like disappointing, like really bad games and bad situational stuff across the board. So they've got a lot of corrections to make, but there's not a lot of time. And so I think it's pride. I think it's focus. And I think it's obviously just trying to set yourself up best for that conference tournament. Now they've had success in the WAC conference tournament. Is a different beast. But, we've seen at times too, even this season, the staff's been able to push some buttons that have worked Talked about Dennis Evans coming to Utah State. So it's kind of in their hands now. Like there's not a lot more. I feel like, there's not this wild card sitting down the bench they're going to pull out like they did Dennis Evans for Utah State. It's kind of like all out there. Like you're tightening rotations at this point. Who's going to make shots, who's going to kind of step up. So it's kind of just gut check time. And we're going to learn a lot about this group here. And I just think, this stuff matters. Like this night in, night out stuff does matter. I get it. You're not going to be able to get into the conference tournament or get into the NCAA tournament at large, but still a lot to play for. And I think we'll get a really good idea on that Saturday. I mean, right away, I joked with the New Mexico guys over at the Pit Press. You guys know, like, we're going to have an idea on both these teams who are coming in struggling, GCU, New Mexico, by the first TV timeout. Like, you're going to know if some of that stuff's been corrected. And we got an idea of both of those teams by the first TV timeout who really wanted to be there. And so we're going to get an idea, I think, for this GCU team. They're on the road, and they threw an awesome punch at Boise State. They've got to do something similar because they're going to be out on the road. But I just think, like, this is a fascinating watch. Like, these guys have it all still in front of them. They need to get momentum going, play better, focus, gut check, all that sort of stuff's where they're at right now. And I think Saturday is the perfect litmus test. A frisky team with a ton of talent, playing with nothing to lose. GCU's going out on the road. Like, this is a good test. So I'm excited for it.
I love it. No filter and keeping it real is Brennan Willams, doing a great job covering GCU. Brennan, before we get you out of here, where can people find your work, listen to your breakdowns, your previews, read up all your stuff on everything GCU basketball?
Well, Nick, I really appreciate having me on. You can just find me, I'm on X, the Everything app, Go Lopes Radio there. We've got Substack. I would say, if you just give me the Google Go Lopes Radio, pull up my Substack, my YouTube. We still have the podcast version, but we've gotten much better with our video product this year. So lots of improvements there. YouTube's great. I try to put stuff out constantly. So that's where you can find me, support, a lot of fun stuff, I think, coming down the road for us. So looking forward to that. And, don't look too far ahead, but we got Mountain West Vegas coming at us really quick. So really, really excited for that.
Absolutely. Can't wait to connect in a month from now in person for the first time. We'll see if we get another matchup beyond this. But regardless, yeah, you never know. We'll see what the bracket looks like. A lot of stuff can shape out in a month from now. But regardless, we'll be catching up down there in Vegas for what should be a fun tournament. So thanks for hopping on, man.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. Cheers.
All right. Thanks to Brennan Willams from Go Lopes Radio for coming on, just kind of talking about player personnel and, what we could potentially see out there on Saturday. I mean, look, you heard it from the man. Like this guy is keeping it real with GCU basketball, even after 2 losses. Like you're starting to see, like, this team's got expectations they spent for the roster. It's a heavy portal team. And, they got some high prize guys with Henley from UNLV, and they brought in one of the best mid-major scorers and Brian Moore from Norfolk State. And, you're just saying, like, it got late pretty early for this team. And, you drop 2 at this time of year. Like, this is the time of year you got to get hot for a contender like GCU, where there is expectations. Brennan, that gets, he gets eyes on every home game. I mean, he's seen it with his own very eyes. Like, this team is not right now. So should be a very interesting test for Grand Canyon coming on the road. And, for San Jose State, look, last time you were at home versus New Mexico, did some really good things. We'll see what it looks like defensively. There hasn't been a whole lot to, hang your hat on that side of the ball. We'll see if they could get a guy like Jermaine Washington out just to kind of spread things out on the floor. That'll kind of be the main, questionable there. Yafet Mundi, I would probably say, is most likely doubtful for a game like Saturday. But hey, you never know with things in the Mountain West. Things can get squirrely. We've had some wild results this year. So some crazy data points that really don't make sense. That will probably become outliers in a month from now. But that's what makes the sport so great. That's what makes this league so great. And we look forward to getting close eyes on this one out here in San Jose. and coming back and reporting before that Nevada game next Tuesday. So that's exactly what we'll do. We'll keep everything eyes on the Mountain West, come back, give our thoughts, analysis, and everything else in between. So keep it locked in here on the Sports Sentiment. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks to Brennan Willams for hopping on the pod. That will do it for me. Once again, I am your host, Nick Urias, and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.